Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. My name is Josh Bitsko, and I'm a retired police captain with 24 years of experience out of Las Vegas. Currently, I travel the country and I teach people about courage, resilience, and leadership. Joined with my wife and co-host, Jenna.
Hi.
And this is the last episode of the season. We have the holidays coming up, and we have actually a really important subject to talk about when it comes to mental health and how we can actually impact the people around us in a positive way and an effective way. Because I don't think a lot of the messaging out there really hits home for a lot of people. But before that, we're getting ready, gearing up for Christmas. It's at the time we're recording this, 10 days away?
10?
Is it less than that?
Christmas Eve is in a week.
Oh, geez. So trying to get the shopping.
He's doing great.
Yeah, I'm doing great. In my defense, I taught like 6 classes in a week, all over the country. So I'm still a little frazzled from that.
Do you know the date today? Like if you had to guess.
December 17th.
Oh, good job. Did you do the math real quick?
No, have you seen me do math quick? Do I ever do math quick? No, that was just an estimation.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
So I am doing well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited to see what I got for Christmas and also what all the kids got for Christmas.
Yeah. You got them some great things.
Yeah, I'll be just as surprised as they are.
Yeah, for sure.
You've been holding down the Christmas shopping in the house. And although in my defense, again, I did set up 8 Christmas trees in our house.
That's true.
So many Christmas trees. We even have one in our bedroom.
Yes.
So, but we like Christmas. We like the holidays. So it's very festive in our house.
I just always want it to feel homey and feel like a place when our kids leave that they want to come back to. I don't know if they care about the decorations, but so maybe that's just like wishful thinking in my mind, but I want it to feel homey and cozy and Christmassy, and I don't think 8 trees is excessive. It looks like a beautiful Christmas display when you walk in.
Yeah, you literally cannot look anywhere in our house without seeing a Christmas tree at one place or another. It's always in your field of vision.
That's true.
So it is very Christmassy. And that reminds me, I need to get a storage unit.
I just keep adding every year.
Yeah, every year.
And our garage has no more room.
Correct. And we have a 3-car garage.
Yeah.
So, but that's a good reminder too. Working on the holidays, working constantly, and especially our first responder community, that you have to work during the holiday season. And I mean, crime doesn't stop. Fires don't stop. Medical calls don't stop. Hospitals need to stay open. So many people that we know and love and care about have to work during the holidays. And, I can give you 100 examples for me working during the holidays. Like one that sticks out, I was on what they called a saturation team. This was like in 2003. And it was...
Can you, as I take a sip of my coffee, can you explain what a saturation team is or what the purpose of that is?
It started in Las Vegas because there was an area in Las Vegas that was the 7th most statistically violent neighborhood in the country. And back then, the idea of saturation style policing is basically you move into a neighborhood and stop anything that moves, which I think policing has evolved, at least here, to where that isn't really the mindset anymore. It's more targeted, more, stopping the right people, not just everybody. But then it was, you have 20 of us that go into a neighborhood and just saturate it. I guess it's the name of a saturation team. And so me and my partner, Billy, got chosen because we were hard workers to go to the saturation team.
Congratulations.
Yes. And we had to work. It was, through the holiday season. And I remember they were telling us, okay, we're going to adjust the days off because nothing really happens on Christmas. There's that old wives' tale of policing that it's all DVs on Christmas, and you're going to go and someone will throw in a turkey out the window and sit on the front yard. Literally never my experience. Every Christmas I worked was like dead.
I was just, dead?
Yeah. They were not busy for me.
They weren't busy. I worked a lot of Christmases too. They weren't busy for us as far as calls for service, the amount, but I feel like something, at least in my experience, people always got murdered.
Really?
On Christmas Eve or Christmas.
Well, I never responded to a bunch, but in patrol or canine or whatever, I'm not gonna. A murder might happen somewhere in the valley. That isn't something I'm gonna go. I'm just for me, it was like people aren't out. People
Yeah.
aren't committing street level crimes. Generally, it's just not quite as like busy for, especially for like a saturation
Yeah,
style
because
policing.
they're at home being nice,
Yeah,
giving each other gifts.
yeah. At least at home.
Crime has to stop.
Yeah, yeah.
Criminals have to take a break.
Haven't you seen a Christmas movie? How many crimes happen in Elf?
Right. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, they were like, they're going to switch your days off. So, you guys get Christmas off. And last minute, you never mind, you guys are working Christmas. And I remember I was just kind of like disappointed. I remember telling Billy before we started our shift, I'm like, someone's literally going to have to open my patrol car door and punch me in the face for me to make an arrest tonight. So, start our shift. We go into an apartment complex. Car passes us. I see as it passed the front plate, and I just note the letters, and then I wanted to get the numbers, so I look in my rearview mirror, and it was a different plate on the back, so that they didn't match. Tried to stop it, takes off, pursuit because we could chase cars then, gets in a crash, car taken in a carjacking. We're searching the car after we arrest the suspects. Billy pulls out a little thing of like, it's like, what is this oil? And I look over, it's PCP. So it's on his skin, and the PCP can transfer through skin contact. So now we're taking him to the hospital, getting him checked, getting him tested. It was like, I just remember like, okay, I started with one idea of how this Christmas was going to go. It did not go the way that I thought it would go. But I have so many stories. I'm sure you do too, of working on Christmas. And I mean, you just shared that there seemed to always be a murder.
Yeah.
And I know you did homicide analysis for a long time, so you would know. Not the anecdotal me. I don't remember that.
No, there are a couple, but one that really bothered me was a girl. She was young. She was in her 20s, but she had recently become addicted to drugs and moved down and had come down here with her boyfriend, and he owed someone drug money, and they were sleeping in this alley, and somebody just came up to both of them and shot them both in the head. And I just remember looking at her picture and thinking how sad that was, because she was beautiful. Like she was absolutely beautiful, and how she wasn't that far along in the addiction. You can tell when you look at their face, and she wasn't that far along in it. And so that kind of bothered me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was Christmas. Yeah. Christmas Eve.
Okay. So great Christmas memories that we're sharing
From
on the
working
podcast.
on the holidays. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, and it's a reality for many like essential workers that have to work on these holidays. And so there's you can't get out of it and you have to work. But then there's also you're trying to avoid like home and going to work. And I know there were times, in my old life, it was easier to work. And I would tell myself, I'm doing this so that other people on my squad with kids can spend time with their kids, even though I had kids.
Yeah.
Maybe not obviously, we're being real here, but I wanted to avoid that. So I would just work. And, I think that there is a mix of that. There's people that want to be home that have to work. There's people that are avoiding home. And then there's also like holidays after my dad passed away, after my brother took his own life, they just weren't the same, really. I mean, they're stressful. I mean, holidays are stressful in general, right? Buying gifts, everybody's coming into town. You have so much to coordinate. And then on top of that, then you have, if you've experienced loss or grief, it can make things a lot harder.
Well, and I think too, it's easier. What you were kind of alluding to is it's easier to tell yourself that you're not avoiding or being avoidant or not dealing with something if it's covered in altruism, right? I'm doing this so other people who have kids can spend the holidays with their family. And you tell yourself that so that you can justify it to yourself and avoid the real reason that you're not being home with your family, right?
Yeah, it's easier to fix other people's problems than your own, right? Because you have to confront a lot of things in your life if you want to fix those things.
Well, yeah, because what would that have meant to you if you actually had confronted that and were real with yourself? What would that have? You would have had to stay home, right?
Yeah, I would have had to stay home and deal with the conflict or the drama or whatever came from that. And then the even greater realization is, how do I fix my life so I don't have that?
Right.
So I wanted to avoid that whole path, and I'll just work, and I'm doing it for other people.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a lot of people's go-to. Um, recently there's been all the drama about with Erica Kirk and Candace Owens, and I saw Erica Kirk said that the way that she handles her grief is by throwing herself into work. And I think that that is something that most people do because it's the easiest way to avoid dealing with those really, really raw emotions.
Well, yeah, and it's easy to distract yourself.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same thing. I'm just a hard worker, and
Mhm.
I'm doing this when other people can't work on the holidays, but it really is just a distraction from what you're feeling. And again, like I said, it's that. And then the holidays bring up all these difficult emotions when you have experienced things, or, like, after a divorce, your first holiday where you don't have your kids, for example.
Hmm. My best friend lived in California at the time. And so every Christmas that I either had my kids all the way up till Christmas Eve, or I had them from Christmas Day through New Year's. So whenever I didn't have them during that period of time, I would go to her house in California because, again, it was easier for me than staying home alone. It was easier than going to my family's house because that brought up, they missed the kids too, and so that brought up all those emotions of real, having to think about my kids not being there.
Mhm. And the good, I don't know, obviously that was a hard time in your life, and it's hard for anybody that's gone through that and is spending a holiday without, their children because of a divorce or any other reason. You had, like I said, me spending a holiday without my brother for the first time after he passed away. So positive for experiencing those things is, so now you have a friend that is, oh, I just have to work this Christmas, but they just went through a divorce. They just lost a loved one, um, unexpectedly or expectedly, and now it's like they're avoiding it. I think because you have those experiences, because I have those experiences, it's easier for me to recognize what's going on and not just buy oh, they're just hard workers.
Mhm.
Right. And so when I see that, I make a concerted effort to reach out, to call them, to have a conversation, even if it's just, it doesn't always have to be this big, hard conversation of like, hey, you're avoiding these things and I think you need to get help. And we're going to talk about those types of conversations in this podcast, but sometimes just, hey, thinking about you. I
Mhm.
know it's hard.
Mhm.
And then when somebody's had a shared experience or understands it, they're more likely to open up or even talk about what they're feeling.
Mhm.
So that is, I've done other small podcasts or even in my book talking about how healed people heal people. Well, because you experience this hard thing and then you put in the work to come through on the other side, you're more likely to help other people because you recognize it even to begin with,
Mhm.
because you have that experience.
Well, and I think too, just the awareness that so many people, I mean, especially now, and I hate saying it this way because I remember my parents saying this, so I feel old saying it, but the further we get with technology and, look, we have a phone that we can just sit and scroll for hours. We don't need anyone around us. We just become more and more isolated, right? So the more that we become isolated, I think the lonelier people get, the more that it's like people isolate themselves more, but then they get lonelier. But then there's such a huge loss of human connection. Even just the awareness that someone is lonely or could potentially be experiencing loneliness, even if they're in a relationship, even if they have a family, they could still be experiencing that. So having the awareness of just people feeling isolated and lonely in general, and exactly what you said, a simple text, a simple call, hey, how are you doing? Just was thinking of you and wanted to make sure you were doing okay.
And how many times have either of us done that? And then 6 months later, someone tells you how much that text or phone call meant to them.
Yeah.
Because again, both of us have been through some things. And so we see When somebody might be struggling and we can see in their eyes or how they're
Or
communicating.
even if they're portraying that they aren't struggling. I've noticed, I had a friend last year who on social media, she was portraying all of these new and exciting and fun things that she was doing. And that wasn't the norm. And so she was so heavy on my mind. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, are you doing okay? Because it feels like you're maybe not doing okay. And she absolutely was not doing okay. So even the portrayal of doing okay or doing fun and new and exciting things, if that's out of the norm, they could not be doing okay.
Yeah. And what you did is reach in. And that takes me to the next point is I think this is mental health in general. I can really speak to the first responder wellness, like the new trend. And it is really a hot topic in policing is mental health and wellness. And I do feel that, most agencies are starting to have the right conversations around mental health. And talking about how to do that right is a whole nother podcast. But so I was assigned to help build a wellness bureau for Las Vegas Metro as a captain, and I had no idea what I was doing. Never, my own mental health wasn't great when I get assigned to that. I'm still working through my own stuff, but through that, I had to take a bunch of classes, and these are like nationally recognized classes on mental health, police suicide, wellness, and you can take a class for 3 days, and they say the whole time, we're great at identifying the problem, the why, the causal factors, knowing, this is why this is happening.
Suicide,
police suicide, or even mental health issues with PTSD and all of that. And then at the end of the class, when it gets to the how to stop it, it's if you're struggling, reach out. And, I've heard that so much through my career. Like, if you're struggling, you need to reach out. And the problem with that, it's been my experience, most of the people that are going to reach out probably were going to. It wasn't a flyer in the break room that said, if you're struggling with your mental health, reach out, that got them to make that phone call. So what I tell people when I teach my class, if we're waiting for a wellness bureau or a company to come in and create this, mental health product or an app or something like that to fix this, police suicide epidemic, we're going to be waiting a long time. Because there's so many different intricacies to intervening and to having those conversations. So what I tell people is we don't reach out. We don't tell people to reach out. We can reach in. Like, I know when somebody's struggling. I may not be able to articulate it well, but especially as a cop and you have 100 interactions a night with people and you learn and you fine tune these skills to know something's off, then we should be able to do that with our peers and other officers that are struggling, or I can just notice something off. And what I tell people is look for big changes in people. Look for someone that was always really outgoing that now isn't. Somebody that was always really positive at work that's now negative.
Somebody that doesn't post much online on social media now is posting a lot of
exactly
very fun adventures,
big hobbies. Changes. And that alone doesn't mean that this person is suicidal, but it can be cause for a conversation. That person that's the golden child is now super bitter, always on time, now late. And I'm just giving examples, but looking for big changes in somebody. And when you see that, that's when you reach in. And it's really hard to do. I teach on courage and I teach on, how to do hard things. And I'll tell you, and I've said this, I've talked to cops that would take a bullet for another cop that they really hate because that's what we do. But to go have a conversation with someone because I know you're struggling, I can tell you're struggling, there's something off. That is scary. That is awkward. You don't want to be wrong. You're afraid you're going to ruin a relationship.
Or offend them.
Yeah.
And have them think that you think they're weak.
Correct. Because we have this, front we want to put up. Or there's also, they have that fear that if I open up to you, am I going to, get involuntarily committed, and what impact does that have on my life and family and financials and career and everything like that too. So, and we know this when we go to have this conversation. So it can make it hard to have the conversation at the end of the day. And then, but what I tell people, because I have not had those conversations with people, and then 2 weeks later, they took their own life. And I'll tell you that did not feel good for me. And, and also them.
It still bothers you to this day.
Yeah. because, you always have those thoughts. Had I reached out, had I reached in, had that conversation, called peer support, called a supervisor, done anything, could it have been stopped? Because when somebody's at their lowest, in 5 years, they may be happier than they've ever been if they put in the work. I don't like saying it's selfish to take your own life and you're affecting all the people around you. I mean, no, do it for yourself. Like, don't get the help and work on yourself because you can find a place where you're happy again. And so there's a lot of guilt because I understand that, having been very low and then was able to come through it. So it's important for me to have those conversations. And the fact that I didn't, it still eats at me. On the flip side, that experience opened me up to now getting past that awkward of having the conversation.
Well,
And
and what is the worst that can happen?
yeah, well, in your head, you do catastrophic thinking, right? This person's going to hate me. They're going to think I'm weak. It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're probably going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
Whether they're struggling or not. It's just, I'm not upset because somebody cares about me. I might be a little like, no, I'm fine. Like, if I truly am. But like I said, generally we know.
Well, and I think so. I just had this experience. I have a friend who had a really good friend pass away in a car accident. He was hit by a drunk driver. And so she's very close to the family and she's been very much struggling. And, so I was checking on her and I, at one point just said, hey, like, do you feel like you maybe need to go get some help for yourself? And she said, no, I think I'm okay. I'm okay, but I'm not opposed to it if I need to. And mind you, she's read your book. Her and I have had, a conversation about reaching in and all of this like many times. But even me even saying that, and I said to her after that, I'm like, okay, that was honestly even really scary for me to send that text. No, even knowing you and knowing how you would receive it and knowing, that you wouldn't shut me down, it still was really scary to send that because again, it's like, I don't want to offend her. I don't want her to think that I think she's weak. I don't want her to think that I think she's crazy. I don't think any of those things. And, she said, no, I feel 100% supported in this moment. It came from a place of love. So all that to say, it can be something that is like normalized between you and the other person and that, and it still doesn't make it any less scary.
Correct. No, those are vulnerable conversations for both parties, for both people in it. And I mean, I remember for me, it was when it was after my brother had passed. It was after the 1 October, my dad had passed. I was just in a really bad place. But at work, I was like putting on a show. I was like the guy. And, I was testing for things. I was getting whatever job I wanted. I was, firing on all cylinders at work. And everybody thought that I just had it together. But you didn't, right? We had been friends for a little while. And we were in your office and you're like, hey, there's something up with you.
Well, and earlier you mentioned looking for big changes in people. And most of the time, I think that's a good indicator. But as you're describing, there were not big changes in you, but there were, as you would talk about things that were going on at work, or I could see that you were getting progressively, and it wasn't overnight. It was after a long period of time, you were getting more and more negative and hopeless and bitter. But it wasn't like because you would then walk out of my office, flip the switch back on, and you were a completely different person to everybody else at work. Right. But it was just in those like conversations about it. It just wasn't like major. It was very gradual. Mm-hmm. And so like, yes, major big changes, obviously, but also like just those little tiny gradual steps can be an indicator too.
Yeah. And But most people didn't see it because I wasn't as open with most people as I was with you. And I'll even tell you at first when you like recommended therapy, help me find a therapist, all of the things that you did, some of it was to placate you because I cared what you thought.
Okay.
At first,
You've never said that to me.
well, here
I don't know how to take that.
Here we are. Because I was so in my head about I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. I don't want help. And I was so resistant to help. I mean, I was involved in an officer involved shooting and went into the therapist and lied my way through it to get back to work. I was that resistant, but I also cared what you thought. And I think part of me was if she's saying this and she knows me so well, there must be a problem. And then part of me is like, no, I'm fine. But I also valued you as a friend and your opinion. So I'm like, well, I'm going to start. And I did not tell the department, which I'm not saying is the right thing or the wrong thing. I just went out and got help and sat down with the therapist. And that started my actual journey of healing and working through the things that I've been through. So both of those things are true. I was hurting, you saw it. I knew I needed help, but then I was so resistant to it that I was like, it took a good friend, somebody that I respected professionally, personally, to recommend that for me to take that first step. First step's the hardest. Actually, the nerves of sitting down in front of a therapist and talking about your issues and talking about the things that, um, you know, everything that had happened and how it was affecting me and relationships and all that, it's scary because you have to confront then if I'm putting that out there, then I have to make changes.
Right.
But
which you also were resistant to for a while. I remember you telling me that you would go to therapy and you would just talk. The therapist was a dog person, so you would just talk about your canine Loki. And I know she knew what you were doing.
yeah,
But you just were, so you were getting help. You were telling yourself that you were getting help, but you actually weren't getting any help.
no, I was just controlling the conversation.
Right.
It'd start to go towards something hard, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to control this conversation and take it the other direction."
So that's a piece of it too, though. Is like, yes, the first big step is getting yourself there. Then the next big step is talking about the things that you need to talk about, and then the next big step is actually doing the hard work.
Doing the work, and that's where it is. You have to value yourself enough to put in the hard work to heal and come through the other side.
And
process through.
You are going to tell yourself a million times, you don't need to do this. Things are getting better now.
Mm-hmm.
Things might be better at home. Things might be better at work. Things might be better, and so you'll oh no, I don't need that. That was just a hard moment. That was just a hard time. But so you'll try to talk yourself out of it. And I wanted to point that out because that's something that you and I just talked about, somebody that, that, wants to get help. And now is like, well, maybe I don't need it. So,
well, yeah, because it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. The journey's not linear.
Yeah.
I talk about that in my book. It's like you have good days, you have good months, and then you let your foot off the pedal with therapy, and then things get bad, and then you go back.
Mm-hmm.
Then you let the foot. It's that like, and there's a book. I'll put it in the comments if we can't remember the name. It's putting in the work or doing the work.
How to do the work.
How to do the work.
It's Dr. Nicole LaPera, something like that.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. So I will not have to put it in the comments. I think you can Google based on that and get there. And it talks about that going down and sitting in therapy isn't just enough, and how to do the work and why to do the work. And there's a lot of good tidbits in there that we both read. So,
yeah. So
I think that during this holiday season, remember the people in your life that may be struggling and have the courage to reach in.
That doesn't mean that you have to suggest to them that they go to therapy. Like we mentioned before, it can simply be hey, I'm thinking of you. And that those times I was thinking about this as I was getting ready to do this. I talk about when I was a single mom, and I feel like sometimes that's looked at as like when somebody says that, oh, you're trying to get attention or whatever. But that truly was like mm, one of the most difficult points in my life. And as a mom, you have a lot on your plate already, but to do it alone is um I don't wish it on anyone, but it also really made me who I am today. All that to say that I still remember to this day. I had a friend who she helped me a lot with my kids. Um and one day she just texted me and she just said, "Hey, I just want you to know that I think you're a great mom and that I really admire that you're doing this all on your own." And I that still sits with me to this day because, you know, I felt like such a failure at that point, and I feel like a failure most days as a mom now. Um, but just her reaching in that way, it wasn't like, a grandiose gesture. It was literally just a text that told me that she thought I was doing a great job. And it obviously, 10 years later has stuck with me. So it doesn't have to be sorry for my crying voice. How annoying.
No, that's good. It shows the power of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This shows the power of a simple text that even to the person sending it might just be like a little reminder, like, hey, I'm thinking of you. Hey, you're a great mom. Hey, you're a badass. Remember who you are. Those little things can maybe not mean a lot to the person sending it, but mean the world to the person receiving it.
Yes.
So
Andrea, if you're listening, I still remember that text and it meant a lot. And so I think something I try to follow is if somebody's been on my mind a lot or consistently, or I just feel, my intuition or my gut telling me to reach out, I try to do that. And hey, how are you? I'm just thinking about you. You've been heavy on my mind, whatever it is. Because whether they need it or not, I always want to listen to that. I think it's important.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, it was a powerful podcast. I think we talked about some really important things, and I think there's probably more we can talk about on subsequent podcasts. But if you liked what you heard, please share the podcast with a friend, subscribe, leave a review. My book, The Courage to Live on Amazon, explores a lot of this. I talk about this quite a bit in detail. So it's called The Courage to Live by Josh Bitsko on Amazon. And I appreciate you guys spending time with us today.